it says. Deuteronomy, we're going to look at 20 in chapter 20 and chapter 21. These are a couple of short chapters. We're picking up some instructions on how to do things as they go about taking over the land, okay, the war that they're getting ready to have. So in the first verse of chapter 20 it says, when you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, don't be afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Several times we see in the Bible that Gideon is one example where they were outnumbered even when they had 10,000 men. The other side may have had 300,000 or 100,000 or whatever number it is. But the Lord said, no, that's you guys are going to get the glory for it. Let's reduce it down a little bit. So 300 men take on how many? 100,000 or whatever. And you think, that's crazy. And yes, it is crazy. But when you have the Lord of hosts leading the battle, you don't have to worry at all. You just stand back and see what happens. So that's what he's telling them. Don't worry about it. Remember, and it goes in here and he'll tell before, remember what happened in Egypt when you was crossing the Red Sea. You know, that was just 40 years ago. Had a innumerable company after them, coming after them, and the Lord took care of them. They didn't have to fight at all. The Lord will take care of them. So it's in our lives, it's easy to get scared. There's two things. You get scared, you can get startled. Most time that's what I feel like. I'm startled. Somebody comes up behind me and I jump because I don't hear them. But you can be petrified. Some people, they get so scared they can't even talk or do anything. And that's what the Lord doesn't want them to do. When they look out there, and I know when David, or actually it's King Saul, looking out over there, and they had both the 5 tribes of the Philistines out there, and they filled the valley, and he looked at his little staff that he had, you know, a little group. I mean, he had a lot, but still, it wasn't anything. They still had to roll. And it was one person, one little boy named David, took care of all of them because he believed in the Lord of hosts. So it says, don't be afraid. Paul summed it up in Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? There's no doubt. No doubt at all. So he goes back through and tells them about that, you know, reminding them about Egypt. 2 through 4, do you want to read that for us, Brother Epson, or no skip? Okay. Iris, do you want to read that for us?
So it shall be when you are on the verge of battle that the priest shall approach and speak to the people, and he shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are on the verge of battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Do not be afraid. And do not tremble or be terrified because of them. For the Lord your God is He who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you.
Okay. Most of the time, when we was reading back in Numbers, when they numbered the groups, and they said about the numbers of people, okay, it was the fighting men. They didn't count the Levites. They did count them later, but they wasn't part of the Levites. But here it says, when they go out in the verge of the battle, a priest shall approach. Evidently, a priest went with them. We see later on as they go through the battles, especially like Samuel, when they first started the battles with Saul and all those, they would make a sacrifice. And we see that with other, you know, and then after the battle, a lot of times they would have a sacrifice too. So to do that, they're supposed to have a priest. And the priest is there. So he's not going to do any battle. He's not going to be doing anything in the battle, but he's there. And in this particular case, he's telling them to remind them of what it is. These are the people that's supposed to be the closest to God, okay, of the people. It's kind of like our chaplains today, I would say, that they go with them and they're to encourage them and give them strength, give them encouragement. Except in this particular case, it's, to remember God. Okay, the bottom of the page, Bertha?
Then the officer shall speak to the people, saying, What man is there who has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle of another man dedicated it. Also, what man is there who has wanted a vineyard and has not eaten of it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man eat of it. And what man is there who is betrothed to a wife and has not married her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man marry her. The officer shall speak further to the people and say, What man is there who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, lest the heart of his brethren faint like his heart. And so it shall be, when the officers have finished speaking to the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people.
Okay, so there were some exclusions. Okay, they put it in, and this is for certain time periods. If you go through and look at all this, they're getting ready to go into the battle to take this land, and afterwards, okay, after they settle the land, the rules change a little bit. Okay, they're going to be a little different. But here, they're giving them a little bit of leeway that if they have a new house and they just built it, they need to stay there. It says when they built a new house, it's dedicated to God. That dedication, it's unfinished, and they have parties. I mean, it's a big deal to them. It's kind of like our housewarming. We don't have too many housewarmings anymore, but I remember when people would get a new house, we'd have a housewarming party for them, and everybody come by and give them, little presents for the house, whatever. And all these things that they're listing, the new house, the wife, vineyard, all these things are their mind, the person's mind is not going to be on the war. It's going to be, what about if that went back, and what's going to happen to my house, what's going to happen to my wife, what's going to happen to my farm. And that's what he's saying. If you're doing all this and you're not looking to God, you're going to be pulled away. We don't want you, basically, in battle. So that's some of the things. So when they used these, they finished speaking to the people, then they decided, and they divided up into where they had captains and different leadership in the groups that they had. And that's much like we see today. We have different armies and Air Force and Navy and Marines. They all have different roles, different leadership groups that they have. Most of them are similar. But
do the priests ever go to war?
The priests, they go to war not to fight. Okay? Because we see several places, they actually took the tabernacle, the ark, with them to the battle. Now, it's not in the battle, but they're on the sides fighting. Okay? When they come to battle, most of the time, they'll come into a place where they can see each other, one on one side, one on the other, maybe a mile or half a mile in between or whatever. But they can see each other. Well, that's where their tents are set up and all that stuff, all their food and water, and they've got supplies, just like we do today. An army is not just an army. I mean, you have to have supply lines, you have to have food, you have to have, today, we have to have fuel, all that stuff. So you have to have something going back and forth between them. That's where these people were. They would take the ark with them to give them moral courage, encouragement to them. And it goes back here and talks about, here it says that the Midianite army may have been over 100,000. They say 135,000. So you had 300 men against 135,000. That doesn't make sense. I'm a scientific type guy, factual guy. I don't like those odds. Those are not good odds. So, I wouldn't be going to that army if you didn't have the Spirit of the Lord with you, okay? 10 through 11. And this is, here again, they don't tell us everything right here. You have to go back and read in the different parts of the Bible about what happens. Here it says, when you go near to a city to fight against it, then proclaim and offer a peace to it. And it shall be that if they accept your offer of peace and open to you, then all the people who are found in it shall be placed under tribute to you and serve you. Not all the people that was in Canaan were, quote, Canaanites. Okay, there were other people groups that were there. God specifically said, though, as they were conquering Canaanites, and it'll tell us here, I think it's in the next, not the next verses, but the ones following it, tells us specific peoples you don't do this to, okay? You are to wipe them out, wipe them off the face of the earth. You don't make an offer of peace. But here he's telling them, go meet somebody, and if somebody wants to, if a king, a lot of times a king or a ruler of a small area, he would say, okay, yeah, we can't fight you. We'll be servants for you. And they say, okay, then we'll do that. But in a little bit it'll tell us the others, the group, the quote Canaanites, the group in Canaan right now, you don't want to do that to, because they are the ones that are the abominations. They're the ones that's doing the things that God does not want his people to do. Okay, Iris, 12 through 15.
Now, if the city will not make peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God delivers it into your hands, you shall strike every male in it with the edge of the sword. But the women, the little ones, the livestock, and all that is in the city, all its spoil you shall plunder for yourself, and you shall eat the enemy's plunder which the Lord your God gives you. That you shall do to all the cities which are very far from you, which are not of the cities of these nations. Okay.
So he's given them kind of their orders, and this is the way that the armies got paid. Okay? It's been that way forever. That when they conquer somebody, they start taking whatever was left there. They can find money on them, or find jewels, or find, whatever they can find, that's theirs. And the food and all that, they take it over. And that's what it's telling them to do. Kill the men, kill the ones that you're fighting against, but the other ones you can take. Use them as slaves, use them whatever, and we'll get a little bit more into that in just a minute. But it said, but don't, in this land that I'm giving you, don't do that. It's getting ready to tell us that. It says it right here. Do this which is very far from you. Okay? You don't want to, those that are right up against you, you don't want to have them beguiling your people. Okay? Trying to lead them away. 16 through 18, Bertha?
19, 20?
On page 6.
Oh, the page ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the cities of these people, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, you shall let nothing that breathes remain alive, but you shall utterly destroy them. The Hittites and the Ammonites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites, and you, at least the Oh, and the Jebusites, just as the Lord your God has commanded you, lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations which they have done for their gods, and you sin against the Lord your God.
Okay. Now he's telling them, in these particular cases, these, what is it, 5 groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. That they are to completely destroy them. Okay? Then their people, the kids, the animals, everything. They are just to completely wipe them out and destroy everything that's there. Because they're going to find something and they're going to start taking up what they were doing. They'll say, ooh, this is pretty, I like it, and want to take it, and it may be an idol. So they hide it, and we find out about that later in the book of Judges, what happens with that. But these were the peoples that were most abhorrent to God. Okay? This culture of the Canaanites, if I say Canaanites, it encompasses all these. Socially, morally, and spiritually, God considered them irredeemable. There was no way that they're going to serve God. So, he's going to take care of them. He's going to wipe them out. If they're, a lot of things that they're doing now. As far as in this day, they were sacrificing their children. And people today say, ain't nobody sacrificing their children. Yes, they are. What's abortion? They want to have whatever they want to do, and they don't care. So that's abortion is sacrificing their children for their pleasure, whatever they want to do. So each one of these, God had a certain reason they were serving these particular gods, and of course, he knew that there was nothing to these gods, but he didn't want his people pulled away. So he said, all these people, these different ites, all the Hittites and the Pezerites and the Jebusites, all those Canaanites, you're to wipe them out. Now, in particular, I'll call out the Jebusites. Do you know where Jebus is? That's Jerusalem. Okay? The Jebus was that city that we now know as Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Many years ago.
It was anything else but Jerusalem.
No, it had a different name because this people group that was there has changed. A long time ago, before this, they think Melchizedek came from Jerusalem. He was a priest of the Most High God back then, but that was in Abraham's time. It's over, 400 plus years. 500, probably 600 years since then. People have been wiped out. So they're going to take over these lands and these peoples, and God's going to give them, if they will follow through with these messages that it's given. Okay? And he's told them to besiege the city. What is besieging a city? Today we would not understand it because their cities had walls around them. That's where you would go to get protected. You may live outside the city, you may have a house outside the city, but if somebody come up and was wanting to, take care of you or try to conquer you, you would run into the city. They closed the city gates, and then they were protected from the people that was in the city, the quote soldiers that took care of them. Well, when they besiege a city, they start attacking it, and they use whatever they can to try to tear down the walls or get up over the walls and get to the people. So that's what is it in 19 and 20. It says, when you besiege a city for a long time while making war against it, to take it, you shall not destroy its trees by welding an axe against them. If you can eat of them, do not cut them down to use in the siege, for the tree of the field is man's food. Only the trees which you know are not trees for food you may destroy and cut down. to build siege works against the city that makes war with you until it is subdued. Now what they do, they'd start cutting down the trees and dragging them up to the wall, okay? And they just keep building bigger and bigger and bigger until finally they can get it up high enough. Now at the same time, the people are up on the wall pulling rocks and oil and whatever, burning, trying to burn them and all this stuff on top of them, but that's the way eventually they did. One of the places that we visited was Masada while we were in Israel. That's on a huge mountain. It's like 1,000 feet tall.
Climbed it?
We didn't climb it. One of our guys said, "Oh, I'm not going up there," because there was a path you could climb. It had a gondola that we rode up there, but it was a ways up there. But what you got up there, and then you could see a level place out here. That's where the Romans was. That was their camp. They camped there for like 3 years, I think it was. And they eventually built a road, mounded dirt up and everything, and even though it's 1,000 feet up, they came up one way and finally broke through the wall.
Wow.
It takes patience and endurance and a lot of men, because a lot of men's gonna die trying to push the dirt, boulders, trees, whatever they can. But here it's telling them, don't cut down the fruit trees. Don't cut down the nut trees. Don't cut down trees that you can eat, okay? Things that produce, because after you get rid of the people, what are you gonna do? You need something to eat. You're gonna take this land, don't be stupid and cut down what there. You can cut down the old, willow trees and oak trees and elm trees and all those things. You can cut them down and bring them up there. And it says for a long time, because it takes, some of these are taking a long time. Now, if they would try to, and we're not there yet, but when we get to Judges, and you go to Jericho, the wall of Jericho, it was tall, it was everything. They would have besieged it a long time, but all they did was 7 days. They walked around in 7 days, and that's all that was needed to take that wall down. Okay, let's go on to 21. Bunch of other kind of various laws it says that's in chapter 21. If anyone is found slain lying in the field in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess, and it is not known who killed him, and it stops there, I'm going to keep on going, then your elders, your judges, shall go out and measure the distance from the slain man to the surrounding cities, and it shall be that the elders of the city nearest to the slain man will take a heifer which has not been worked and which has not pulled a yoke. The elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with flowing water, which is neither plowed or sown. And they shall break the heifer's neck there in the valley. Then the priests, the sons of Levi, shall come near, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to bless in the name of the Lord by their word. Every controversy and every assault shall be settled. And all the elders of that city nearest to the man's slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. So what they're saying is, if they come upon, you're traveling around and you see this guy out there and he's dead, then you're to alert the people of the town. Say, hey, there's somebody dead out there. Is that one of yours? It's a responsibility, okay? So they go out there and they look and they said, oh, we don't know who this guy was. He's different. He wasn't in our city. So they go around and see. They tell the elders, and the elders go out and they look and see who it is. It's kind of a judge and jury and everything like that. And in order, because the man was murdered and his blood bled on their land, God already told them back then, you need to cover that blood up, okay? Because the blood is the life source. That guy was bleeding out there on the land. So they take the guy and bury him somewhere. And it may be, and one commentary said, maybe out there wherever they killed the heifer. So they take a heifer and they're offering a sacrifice is what they're doing, okay? Instead of, they don't know who it is, the elders say, we don't know anything about this guy, We don't know where he came from, we don't know who may have killed him, we don't know anything. So they kill the heifer and offer a sacrifice for him, and then the guys wash their hands in the water and say, okay, it's kinda like Pilate dipping his hands in there and said, we don't know anything about this. Be done with it. So that's what they're saying, but they're also putting their lives on the line, because if they do know something that's about it, God's gonna require it of them. So they here again, as being an elder of their town, they have to report it, they have to be fair about what's going on. 7 through 9, Irish, you wanna read that?
And then they shall answer and say, our hands have not shed this blood, nor have our eyes seen it. Provide atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and do not lay innocent blood to the charge of your people Israel. And atonement shall be provided on their behalf for the blood. So you shall put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord.
Okay. So it's just telling them that this is taking the place, trying to make an atonement for this murder that nobody knows about. It happened, and who knows what happened, so they're just saying this is a way that they can take away that guilt that is there. Okay, Bertha, 10 through 14.
When you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God delivers them into your hand, and you take them captive, and you see among the captives a beautiful woman, and desire her, and would take her for your wife, then you shall bring her home to your house, and she shall shave her head and trim her nails. She shall put off the clothes of her captivity, remain in your house, and mourn her father and her mother's for a full month. After that you may go into her and her husband, and she shall be your wife. And it shall be, if you have no delight in her, then you shall be, if you have no delight in her, then you shall set her free, but you certainly shall not sell her for money. You should not treat her brutally, because you have humbled her.
Okay, so we talked about in the previous chapter that they would take and capture the women and the children that's there. Here is one that if you find a maiden, and that's the way some of these people, they got their wives, that they would get a wife here.
Well, it sounded like they took somebody else's wife.
Well, they killed them in the war, okay? Yeah, they did. And it may not be, most of the time, a lot of the times, it would be the virgins, okay? Ones that hadn't had a wife. The others that, and I'm not saying that's the way it always is, but in other contexts, that's what it's saying. But it's a lot better than what the other people were doing with their captives, okay? They were treating them brutally. They wouldn't treat them with any respect at all. And they said, some of the commentaries that I read, it was interesting, they said when they knew that the Israelites were coming, the ladies would put on the best dresses. They wanted to impress the soldiers, because they knew they would be treated better even than maybe they would be treated there. Okay? So they gave them time, they gave them a month to mourn their fathers and their mothers. They're not going to see them again because they've been killed in the war. They give them, and if he finds at that particular time, after a month, if he doesn't want to marry her, then he lets her go free. Well, the other countries wasn't doing that. They sell them. They just sell them as slaves and go out and make money on them and go do it again. So God's setting them up that they gotta treat people with respect. Okay? Now the ones that he told to totally wipe out, they weren't totally wiped out. But here, in this particular case, that's not what he's saying to do. And talks about shaving her head and trimming her nails. This kind of purifies her, humbles her a little bit, and it's a break with the past. Whatever she was before, she's no longer that. She's supposed to take on the likeness of an Israelite. Okay, it may not be. They have to learn that. If they don't want to be a part of that, the guy says okay, and he lets them go. Now that's what God wants them to do. Now this scripture, I had some comments on it. The next scripture says, if a man has two wives, okay, and what I read about it, it's not two wives at the same time. It's one wife and one died, and another wife after that. To me, makes a little more sense. If a man has two wives, one loved and the other unloved, and they have borne children, both the loved and the unloved, and if the firstborn son is of her who is unloved, then it shall be on the day he bequeaths his possessions to his sons, that he must not bestow firstborn status on the son of the loved wife in preference to the son of the unloved, the true firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the unloved wife as the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. Now, here it does say that, there's going to be problems if you have two wives to begin with. We see that whenever they have that in there. But to me, it makes more sense understanding a wife. He had a wife. He didn't really like the first wife, but he had a kid with her. Then he marries another wife. She dies, and marries another wife, has kids with him, and she likes his wife better and everything, and he's going to give that to them. He said, no, the firstborn is the firstborn, and that right needs to go to that firstborn child, firstborn son. And to me, they read their math here. I think they got their math wrong. It says if there were 3 sons, the inheritance would be divided into 4 parts, with the first part receiving 2 parts, and the other 3 sons receiving 1 part. Well, there's only 3 sons, so it should have been 2 sons. The other 2 sons, they get 1 part apiece, and the first son, he gets 2 parts. And I think that's not that. You'll read the next one, 18 through 21, Iris.
If a man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and who, when they were chastened him, will not heed them, then his father and his mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his city, to the gate of his city, and they shall say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his city shall stone him to death with stones. So you shall put away the evil from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear.
Okay. So it goes back to one of the commandments that they need to honor their father and mother. And if a child or if a son doesn't honor their mother, they're not, they chastise him and he doesn't take it. Later on there it says if he's rebellious, he's a drunkard, a glutton, and all this, he won't do what we tell him to. It says take them into the city and they go out and stone him. Boy, that's tough, isn't it? I don't want to. I'd want to be a one family.
Harsh ways.
Well-
Father, yes, Father.
That's right. Well, it sets the example. That's what it does, what it says. That sets the example that if you don't follow and honor your father and mother, you're gonna be taken care of.
And the younger ones after that, it's a
They'll
risk
see
for
that,
them.
yeah. It's a record, not only to that family, but every other family that sees that they're gonna take care of them. Says it doesn't mean a small child or even a young teenager, but a son of accountability, somebody that's old enough to determine for himself what's going on. And you could even say it's a prodigal son. Okay? That's why Jesus, that was so radical about when he told about the prodigal son, because normally what they said back then is that they should do this. Now the father's welcoming him back in. Well, now the son is not rebellious or anything. He understands, and he's, you know. Says all Israel shall hear and shall fear. Says perhaps just the presence of this law was a deterrent enough. We never have a scripture example of a son being stoned to death because he was stubborn and rebellious. Yet the Jews say this law was never put into practice, and therefore it might be made for terror and prevention to render the authority of the parents more sacred and powerful. Stoning was the punishment appointed for blasphemers and idolaters, which, if it seems severe, it is to be considered that parents are in God's stead, okay, entrusted in good measure with his authority over their children, and that families are the matter and foundation of the church and commonwealth, and they who are naughty members of the rebellious children in them do commonly prove the bane and plague of these. Therefore, no wonder if they are nipped in the bud. We look today, and you see, 13, 14, 15-year-olds talking back to their teachers and, hitting them and all that stuff. Boy, that happens today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the parents hadn't taken, charge.
Are you saying that the students hit their teachers?
Yes,
Yeah, they do.
yeah. There are some that
When I
had
sent
done
it to
that.
God, I hated it because they were so disorderly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were only fifth graders.
Yeah, it could be as young as that even. Once they get as tall as you, almost, or just about as tall as you, that's when they get in their rebellious years a lot of times, and sometimes you have to put the hammer to them, so they say. They want to prove their justice, and that's kind of like going out there and saying, you may be a big old boy, but I can still whoop you. And that's what they were trying to tell them.
My mother would have held us down and said, have at it.
That's right.
I remember when I got back out of the Marine Corps, came home, and Dad was out in the yard, and me and Billy was out there. I was 22, so Billy would be 20. And we started shoving Dad around, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
We decided we were gonna take him down.
Mm-hmm.
We did, but when we were so tired.
Mm-hmm.
And one of us couldn't do it. It took both of us to do it. And, my dad, he was not quite as old as what we thought he was.
Yeah, that's right. A little pep still in there.
I like that where it said, if such a law were enforced today and duly executed, how many deaths of disobedient and profligate children would be in all the corners of the land?
Mm-hmm.
You would think that when they see what's gonna happen to him, he'd change his ways.
Oh yeah, but see, that's what's not. Today, that's giving a slap on their hands or even anything. They don't even, do anything. Or they're given a treat. They're given 2 to 3 days detention, so they stay at home. So they see it as a good thing. It's just totally backwards
And
today.
some of the parents agree with the kids, and so they're ready to sue the teachers in the school.
Oh yeah, they you're not gonna do my boy that way or my girl that way, but, yeah, it's way different than what it was when we were going to school, for sure. I mean, once they took the paddle out of the school, that it become a, you know, certain way.
While I was in the military, you could tell, it didn't take you very long, you could tell somebody that had received discipline and correction. They usually didn't have any problems with following orders and stuff. But the ones who's always in trouble were the ones that did not have discipline at home and didn't know how to follow orders.
Yeah.
My grandmother always said to us, I still had that bar of lye soap. Boy, if you don't think that is scary, that's the picture.
Yeah, yeah. And the last verse, 22 through 23. If a man has committed a sin deserving of death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain overnight on the tree, but you shall surely bury him that day, so that you do not defile the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, for he who is hanged is accursed of God. Now this is not saying that they hung him, okay, as part of the death. They would do, most likely they stoned him or anything like that, and then they would hang his body on the tree to show people this is what happened. But the Romans would leave them there until the birds and everything start pecking them, until the bones falling off, and then they throw the bones over and put the next person up. God's not saying that. They said, no, take him down off the tree, bury him like you should, and then the land won't be defiled. Okay, because anything that's death, anything, remember, whenever they touched a dead body, then they had to go wash and be cleansed. They couldn't participate in any of the temple duties. The priests couldn't. Even a normal person, they had to go offer a sacrifice for that. So here, that's what they're trying to do. These people that committed these crimes, and there were people that did back then, this was to show them. It was harsh, we see today, by our standards, but it was a deterrent. Like I said.
Nowadays you can't even spank a child.
Well, no.
I mean,
Can in your own home,
if they wanna throw a bottle at you, then throw a bottle at you.
but in your own home. But if you can do that, but if the child there's some child that go then and get their own lawyer and wanna sue their own parents, and that happens today too. It's just crazy. You know, they hear that, oh, that's child abuse. And they'll take the kid out of the house, and then they'll figure out what child abuse is most of the time, if it was somebody that's worse. So, but that's one of these things that goes about, and it talks about, and this is where we hear, for he who is hanged is accursed of God. That's where Jesus took on our curse.
Yes.
Because he was hung on a tree like us. He was accursed for us. It says right here, for he who is hanged is for the punishment of being hanged on a tree and left to open exposure was thought to be so severe that it was reserved only for those for which it was to be declared, this one is accursed of God. And then they tell us that we are redeemed from the curse of the law by the works of Jesus, by his sacrifice, by his hanging on the tree. He took on our sin, and he became our curse. So, well, I appreciate everybody coming out.
Thank you.